Start our study session here. Where do you want to start? Audit presentation, I guess?
Audit presentation would be the first place to start.
All right, thank you.
So everyone should have just a few things. So we have a copy of the financials. We also have just kind of a little presentation where we mainly go off that. And then there's what's called a post-audit letter. I don't know if there's anything, major note in that. That's kind of tucked into the back there. So if we just start with the presentation here. So I think I was kind of talking to Jessica before, and we really felt like this year went a lot better, which we were, pretty happy about. I think last year was definitely a difficult audit, and she came into, a pretty difficult, situation. And you had a federal audit on top of that, which, the school isn't used to, normally doing. So, I think usually what we're looking for when we do the audits, we're just looking for some progress, and we definitely felt like this year we're a lot better. So we were definitely happy about that. So we just kind of start here where it says audit opinion and summary. And another thing to note, we've also put some page numbers in here that kind of reference back to the financial statements. To kind of show where some of our information is coming from. So that
Which
first
document are you using? Big one? Okay, that one.
page.
PowerPoint, yeah.
So we can see this first part where it says, in our opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of Erie County Technical School as of June 30th, 2023. So that's what's known as a clean opinion. So we're offering our assurance on the financial statements that we believe them to be accurate in material respects. We kind of bold that material part there and then kind of define it below. This is kind of like an amount that we calculate based off a percentage of like a benchmark, whether it be total assets or total revenues, and we kind of design our audit tests around that and test to kind of that threshold. So that's where that comes into play. So I said before, a clean opinion. In terms of findings, we had some last year, probably 3 or 4. We had no new ones each year, so I know Jessica was pretty happy about that. We just had one repeat one basically from last year, and that's with fixed assets, but the school couldn't really do anything for that yet. It's my understanding that once all the renovations are complete, then industrial appraisal will be able to come in, update, schedules, things of that nature, and then we can get rid of that one too. And hopefully be down to 0. So yeah, we were pretty happy about that. We put the page references in there, page 42 and 43. So nothing for the current year, just a repeat from last year. We got rid of 3 findings from last year. Mark those as corrected. That's on page 44 of the financials. So definitely we were pretty happy about that, and I think it's a little easier now the kind of year working with Jessica. She kind of knows what we're asking for, and she's always been pretty responsive, and it's definitely kind of like a collaborative effort getting these things done. So we were pretty happy about that. If we flip to the next page here, we kind of throw this in most of our governmental ones. This key concept section, and normally when we're looking at governmental financial statements, we're really dealing with 2 different sets of financials in here. We have the government-wide, which is your traditional accrual financial statements, long-term focus, we have long-term debt, capital assets, depreciation, and then we have the fund statements, which is usually what's presented at the meetings with a short-term focus, kind of more similar to cash basis. So if we move down to this next slide, this is that long-term portion, or government-wide. And we kind of redid this one for this year and tried to add a few years in here, like 4 or 5 years. I think someone said something last year. You should maybe put a couple extra years in here. So I said, yeah, we'll do that. So we kind of show a 5-year trend here. And this is in those full long-term figures. If you look at that first chart there where it says change in net position, that's kind of like your profit or loss, or revenues over expenses. You can see in 2019 you had a decrease of about $600,000. That was a bad year for pension, if I remember. 2020, that was kind of right before everything got crazy. 2021, you see it go up to $1.2 million increase. You had a lot of additional funding at that point, state and federal funding. 2022, obviously we see it go way up, and that's, you know, the district contributions for the project, and then we see it kind of go back down to about 10.8 million the current year, and that's kind of expect that it's going to fall around probably 21 or 20 is going to be kind of a normal year as the, you know, the project completes and, you know, we go forward. If we look at total assets, which would be the next one over, you can see they're pretty, you know, steady 2019 through 2021, and then you see the project kind of kick in there, and the, you know, the assets are up at 2023, they're at 43.1 million. So really that's those contributions from the previous one being turned into, you know, fixed assets, improvements, buildings, things of that nature. And then the final one is just total liabilities and deferred inflows, and that's been relatively steady. The pension liability is the main kind of factor there. So if we flip to the next page here.
Your total asset graph there, though, that's gonna stay up, that's not gonna fall off.
The last one here, the liabilities.
Right, you take a normal like depreciation on the building then, because that's an asset now that we have.
Yeah, so
It's talking the middle graph.
yeah, the middle one. So that middle one usually, and we don't know what kind of adjustment we're gonna get from industrial appraisal as well, but you would normally see it ramp up, you know, quickly when you have, you know, the improvements come in, and then you're gonna see it kind of taper off over the depreciation.
But that'll take years.
Years, you know, like 30 years or something like that. So, yeah, that's correct. If you flip to the next one here, we're going back to kind of the short term. So looking at, you know, just the funds, mainly general fund and capital projects kind of combined into what we call governmental funds. We can see total assets are down about 6.4 million to around 10.2 million. That's consistent with the investments in the into the building and the renovation project. It's similar in terms of asset composition, you know, almost identical to last year. The receivables are down a little bit. There were some federal ones last year. If we look down to the graph below, this would be total revenues for governmental funds. Overall revenue was down 12.7 million, but obviously, you know, with the project kind of winding down, that's going to have a considerable effect there. You know, of that $12.7 million decline, the district contributions make up about 13.2 million of it. Local revenue is up slightly. We've seen interest revenues are up, so that's kind of driving that across, you know, all the schools. Federal revenues were up 400,000. That was kind of a weird situation in which we recognized them for long-term ones last year, but not this year. So it was kind of like a little bit backwards, but because the money came in so late, past, you know, last year's year end, we recognized the revenues of the funds this year. So if we flip to the final page here, we're just looking at general fund now, and we're looking at total expenses. So total general fund expenses down around 450,000 to around 7.1 million. In terms of composition of these expenses, relatively, you know, similar to the prior year. Mainly the declines were in construction, operation, maintenance, and plan, and then admin. And then our final one, this would be our budget to actual, which kind of like Jessica's crystal ball, I guess is what we could call it. So we're looking at what was budgeted, what was actually spent. This one's pretty good. We've seen some crazy ones this year. This isn't one of them. You had some slight unfavorable variances in instruction and facilities, and then favorable in people, personnel, but that was all I had. So I don't know if you have any questions, comments on the process.
I got a question. We had a little discussion, I don't remember the last time we met or 2 times ago, but with the foundation, you guys did some work for us. We were having you guys audit us all the time. When we had Career Street, there's a lot more money flowing. Right now, it's hardly doing anything. We can't justify spending a whole lot of money. I know there's a bills payable, that's what made me think of it, but what's your take on that?
I'm not aware of a specific requirement, you know, for an audit in that case. A lot of times when you have a program like that, like a Career Street, it'll be literally written into the, you know, the grant agreement saying, you know, you need to have an audit. You know, the other thing that comes into play is the level of contributions that are coming in. Sometimes if those get high enough, you know, the state or, you know, might require, I'm not sure about BE, how they do that. But there are other districts where, you know, the foundation just kind of gets wrapped into the whole district audit and doesn't get a separate audit. But I kind of agree with you without that much in it anymore. You know, it probably doesn't make sense that it needs its own separate. And I think we have that engagement letter to just do an I-90 for it. We're trying to wrap that up now, so we should have that done pretty soon.
Right, so going forward, if you help us with a 990 type deal, if you see any discrepancy, you can come back at this meeting every year, you can say, hey, I think we need to do something more.
Might need an audit this year or something like that.
You'd be more comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what you said, a private foundation doesn't need to have it.
We're not talking about a large inflow and outflow in that foundation. I think we did it because of Career Street and the revenue that was potential to come in there. We wanted to, who was handling the money.
Any other questions or comments?
I just want to say thank you to Jessica. I know last year we had a couple of things, you know, you walked into that stuff. Looks like you've taken care of all that, but
She's
great
smiling.
job. She is. So great job.
Thank you.
So your last graph here, does that include everything for the school for the budget? Because that graph says that we were about $200,000 over budget for the year. Are there other things missing from that?
Are we looking on this last page?
Page 4, last slide.
Yeah, so page 4, the last slide, the variances next to them are basically variances within that expense category. So like instruction has an unfavorable variance of $195,000.
So when we add all up the variances, we end up with $198,366 to the negative.
I can tell.
Does that correlate with how we ended the year last
So
year roughly, or how does, what, are there other things missing from that set of variances? Or is this just a snapshot of a portion of the budget?
yeah, so that'll just be general fund. I don't think, I mean, when we do the budget, there's usually not anything incorporated for capital projects other than the transfers that are going to capital projects. So I think on page 45 is kind of actually where we're taking, you know, those figures from, and that's basically a schedule, you know, budget to actual. So if you look kind of everything, like you look at those interfund transfers, you look at like non-revenue items, you're showing a favorable variance of about $284,000. Whereas on this, you know, kind of graph here, we're strictly looking at, you know, revenue and expense. We're not necessarily looking at those other kind of financing sources, which tend to be kind of unique items. But yeah, that page 45 is basically the, you know, the summary of just general fund. If that helps.
What does it look like, if we were 280,000 favorable, is that what I'm right?
Yes, correct.
On the bottom line versus what you were saying, on the chart, looks like we're negative and this one looks like we're positive.
You'd have to add kind of all these together, like some are positive variances, some are negative. And if you totaled all those, you would come to a variance of about 232,000. On this, we're only looking at revenues and expenses. This bottom part here, the other financing sources, we usually just kind of deal with that, you know, separately. We could put it, you know, in the chart. It would show a pretty wild variance from budget there, because I don't think the transfers were necessarily budgeted for, so you'd be looking at like, you know, 9.8 million. But I mean, if you total everything all together, you're about 280,000 positive.
If you look at the adult education and expenditure programs, your unfavorable variance is 308,000, but if you go up to local sources, I'm guessing that's the vocational adult education programs. Is that like the truck CDL things that were, you budgeted and we had more than double the income?
Right.
That's probably that type of a thing.
Yeah, that's what the theory is.
And then you have to pay that to
The
a third party.
expense, right.
So it's just coming in and going out, so it offsets itself there. That's the biggest numbers on there that I see.
Where's that coming in at? Where's?
Local sources up, the very first line.
Okay.
So you had almost
that was
double
gotcha.
the income
All right.
from what was budgeted. That's a
That makes sense.
pass-through. Our local sources are taxes, so if it's off that bad, it's unusual, usually our own budgets, but here, local source, because you've got local district operating, that's where that income's coming from, but. So I wondered what local sources was till I looked down and saw that, and I figured it out.
So I guess my question is, Mike kind of indicated, so what bottom line is, we're to the good, 284. Within each bracket category, there may be some pluses and minuses. Are we seeing any negative trends that we have to worry about, whether it's in, I'll say, the instructional line? I mean, is that trending? I know we're gonna redo a budget and we'll readjust and reallocate the funds that are heading that way, but any of the income sources or the continual fixed cost that you starting to see a trend that is trending the wrong way? Maybe that's a broad question to ask.
No, I think, and maybe Jessica can better answer the expense side of things, where she's, obviously more involved in the budget, but I imagine it's tied to, enrollment, and you get a lot of maybe fluctuation in that, and that is tied to that instructional expense. And, in terms of some of these other ones, like tech, and, things like that, like, who knows what you could encounter.
Well, sure,
here.
and now we have a brand new, larger facility, so,
Yeah.
Our budget is going to reset, based upon this new larger facility, which, we showed a negative variance as of 6 months ago.
Yeah.
That'll be adjusted. Maybe the question is just, as long as the totals work themselves out to the positive, I guess that's where I just to check to make sure that we're trending in the right direction.
Yeah, and I think, you have a positive overall, like you
Fair.
said, it's like you look at all these individual things.
Right.
In terms of revenue trends, the major one that kind of is affecting all the districts this year is obviously the drop in federal revenues.
Yeah.
They kind of call it the ESSER cliff. You got all this ESSER funding for all these years, and then all of a sudden 24, it's like, it's gone. And I think a lot of the recommendation there was, don't spend this on reoccurring expenses,
Agreed.
spend it on one-time items. If you use it on salaries or something like that, and then the money goes away, it's like you might have to, remove the position. But obviously, you see a decline in federal revenues, state revenues. We've seen have been relatively static, everywhere.
Did the last state budget improve funding for technical school?
I should probably
Maybe you would.
Can you answer that one?
Maybe.
Supposed to.
That's what I thought I read. Now, maybe it's a flowery language, hiding something else.
I
But
guess we'll wait and see what the check says.
Yeah, right.
Philadelphia?
yeah,
Sure they made
We're on
it
the wrong
sound-
end of the
are we in the
state.
wrong district?
Yeah, we're on the wrong end of the state.
We're not in
I don't.
Philadelphia.
Is that a
I
fair
believe
question?
so, yeah, I believe so. I'll have to go in there when I do the budget, see what the new calculation is, because I think it's different now.
Understood. Okay.
But the reasoning for the variance is that, like for Perkins grant, we don't know what's gonna be next year, so we budget to what it was the previous year, and then it could be less or more, and that's where I budgeted to be this, but now it's 100,000 more. That's where you'll see the variance, or 100 less. But that's what it
Well,
is.
it's 35,000 more. Wish it were 100,000.
But it's by the time, since we have to do our budget too early, then it's hard to try to have like a closer
Yeah,
number.
there's always a lag.
Yeah.
Your budgets in state when they finally get themselves in order.
Ours is really strange, because we have to do the budget here before our own school district does the budget, and they have to do the budget before the state does the budget, so we're like way ahead of tech school. You're looking at, trying to figure this stuff out.
Almost
Way ahead.
a year ahead.
Yeah, that's what,
The other interesting thing is we use 3-year averaging on enrollment, but it's like 2 years behind, right? So like, because we do our budget so early, we're building off of 21-22 data for this year's budget. 22-23 data, which was last year, we're doing enrollment off of 21-22 as the third year of that 3-year enrollment. If you think back at our enrollment trend right now,
Sure.
right? We were like 680, 690, 714. And then last year we were like 780, and then this year we're 810.
Right.
But that 780, 810 will drive, you know, some of that tuition down.
Sure.
It won't hit for, you know, it hasn't hit yet, right? Even though we're kind of in the second year of it, it won't hit, the beginning to hit next year and then the following year.
Per pupil cost will go down, but
Our budget will go up.
But our budget's going up and everybody's gonna
Yeah.
contribute more, as you're saying.
Right, that's more
Yeah, yeah, the more
Right,
students
right,
come in. And that's the crux of my report coming up.
And that's probably the reason that the first line on that, for the chart that I started with 190,000 higher.
Almost all of that, to
Yeah.
Sam's point, came out of the adult education side.
He's talking about instruction though.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm looking at that, yes, the summary is 195 to the negative, but the majority of that negative variance came out of the adult education board.
Yeah,
Versus,
on the instruction, you can look at that, we've, look at the turnover that we've had, positions that weren't filled for a certain time. You've got, you know, when you have turnover, you've got, you know, a lot of times a teacher leaving at a high, you know, higher up on the pay scale, you bring somebody lower, that all adds up over time. We don't know that 2 years in advance with the budgets.
fair enough.
You're budgeting a higher number, which is good.
So the accountability on finances and the audits and the inventories and stuff is something of the processes we're talking very heavily as an admin team about as well. For example, the fixed assets, we have a good grasp on, right? Anything over 1,500, everyone tags and marks and everything like that. And so I believe we have we scheduled industrial? We said we were
Not
scheduling
yet.
and try to get them here in May or June. Because the renovation's over and then they go through, because we are out of compliance with our Perkins audit and stuff like that, because of the renovation, they haven't been here for a couple of years. But then we're gonna hit very heavily this spring, our small and attractive stuff, 50, I call it 50 to 1,500. There's a lot of things that we've purchased here in all these programs that aren't quite tagged, like this table alone would be in that 50 to 1,500 range, and they're not tagged, and there was some system for a while and not a system. But we're putting that into place as an admin team. We're working with our teachers to tag everything and, you know, get it to where it's well tracked, let's put it that way. So, we have our Perkins audit, they'll be on site from PD January 9th through 11th. And part of that, those changes in the Perkins audit have driven some of those discussions.
Any other questions? Comments? Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting.
No one ever does.
Grab a cheesecake.
All we can do is offer.
Cheesecake to go.
So continuing through the work session, we'll just run through some agenda items, just highlight a few things. The MOU with the union, basically taking our business office secretary, the confidential secretary was a big win. We sent that out about a month ago as an update. Nobody had any concerns there. So that's there to be approved tonight. We also then are approving the hire to fill that position, which will definitely make Jess smile, because and Kat have been working overtime to cover for being short-staffed there in the business office. Any questions on the MOU? We'll go to executive session to talk about some of the hires, because there are several listed. So we'll do that before the meeting starts and get some of that. And then I don't really see anything else that's real major on it until we talk about discussions of my report. Does anybody have anything else, questions on any of the agenda items before we go to my report? Hearing none, we'll head on down to my report. Can you pull that up there? Yep. Michael. Okay, so, a few can zoom that in a little bit. We've been talking a lot about programming, expansions, and with the renovation, adding new spaces and so forth. And Cosmo too. And thank goodness we have a great administrative team, and they decided, hey, you know, the day before Thanksgiving, we don't have students, we're all working, let's take a road trip down to a career and tech center down outside of Pittsburgh in Westmoreland County. It's got a lot of great stuff going on, and kind of pick their brains and meet with them and look at what they're doing. And in doing so, that's when I realized how we could do Cosmo 2 for about 1/4 of the cost of what we were looking at before. And basically, it's below the wall. So you have the salon, you have the theory room, blow the wall out, make that one bigger salon that can house 2 teachers. And we can double our Cosmo and do it about 1/4 of the cost of what we were looking at that proposal from the spring of 2023. Now, health is across the way. And the health room with the lab and the theory room is not like a super special lab that has a lot of unique stuff. Like welding, you got a lot of unique stuff in it. And so we're gonna move them to another space, not one of the new spaces, another space where we have back-to-back classrooms. We're gonna put health in that space, and then give cosmetology the health theory room and lab space for storage. And so by increasing and disrupting the health and moving it down to a double classroom space that we have down in this end of the building, we can go 2 teachers in cosmetology and open it in the fall of 2024 with a minimal disruption to the rest of the building. I believe we can get it. I'm still getting drawings from the architects and whatnot, but when I say blowing out that wall, I mean I'm literally just cutting out the middle of the wall. We have mechanicals and chases going up the wall on the outside, so we're gonna leave like a bulkhead, leave the edges, and open up the wall in the middle so that the salon is that extra footprint to the theory room. And then with 2 teachers, they can swap spaces back and forth. So that's what we're working through. I rolled that out with our superintendents December 1st at our meeting, and it was pretty unified there that they were like, wow, this is awesome. We want Cosmo 2, and it totally makes more sense at roughly $180,000 to make it happen versus $640,000, which was the projection in the spring.
And losing our 2 new spaces.
And losing our 2 new spaces, which we still have those 2 new spaces. Now, health. In that conversation with the superintendents, I went around and had each one of them share what their vision is for the future of ECTS. Because as we talk about expanding, there is a lift on the district end, and we want to be very thoughtful of that. As we add emergency protective services, basically for the first year, every district gets 2 seats roughly. So that's 2 extra students enrolled here for your local budget. If we expand cosmetology, now that's 2 extra seats for year 1 and 2 extra seats for year 2 as we ramp that up. 2 more seats. So we looked at what does that look like in finances, and I put some stuff together. The superintendents chose to do a little subcommittee that is meeting weekly. We've had 2 meetings, today was one of them, to kind of hash this out and what's it look like. But in doing so, we shared that thought of expansion, you know, and I talked our enrollment numbers and our applications coming in, and that's what you see there on that report. The number of first choice applications, and this was as of last Wednesday. Now, our deadline was until Friday, and we had like 50 more applications come in between Wednesday and Friday. The numbers you're looking up there are the first choice open seats. So it's like, here's the number of first choice, here's the number of open seats, here's the number of people we're turning away. And then, you know, the ones that have a little room for more. And I highlighted health and Cosmo because our health program is a very, our health assistant program is a very kind of classroom-based program. it has hands-on portions, but it's more of a anatomy-based, classroom-based program. And I said, in talking with the superintendents, that is a program with, we have traditionally had one teacher for 2 spaces. And there's a theory room and a lab room. And, I challenged that we could do 2 teachers in 2 spaces, where they share the theory and lab and switch back and forth. And that's one of the things we saw down there. And so I kind of said, like, we're turning away 38 students from health with an industry that's screaming for people into the industry. And I said, I feel like cosmetology, the arguments are still the same, or the pros and cons are still the same that we reviewed earlier this year, where we were not in favor of cosmetology based on where they go in their career stuff. Whereas health, it's tough to turn 38 students away. Health, in my opinion, is one where when moving into this new space, it could be a 2-teacher lab in one space, pretty much plug and play, with a very easy lift. And so I asked them, what are their thoughts? And 9 of the 11 superintendents that were still at the meeting at this point all said we should do health. We should do 2 health teachers next year. So I bring that to you. We're not going to approve anything tonight. I'm going to approve it in January, but I bring this discussion to you to kind of get your feel of what do we look at as the JOC group. Are we looking at that favorably to say, hey, Cosmo 2 at 180,000, make that happen. We can make that happen. That sounds good. We're using the contingency funds and so forth. Going to health 2, yeah, that's a pretty simple scenario that I think we can make happen, and we want to make it. We want to make this decision by the end of January, because when we do enrollment and we then accept kids into programs, all of the 57 and 38 that are highlighted out there will be redistributed to other programs of second choice. If we open up down the road, then they'll all want to bump back in, and then they'll screw up all the other, it'll be just a sorting mess to get the rosters right then for the programs moving forward. So I kind of bring that out there. Yes, we poo-pooed Cosmo 2. Completely poo-pooed it for multiple months because it didn't feel right to me. And as soon as I saw what they were doing down in Monroeville, where they had 1 lab space that was just a little bit bigger than our lab, 3 teachers, 1 theory room, and 75 kids per session, I'm thinking, we can do this. I have had conversations with our teacher. I've had conversations with our union. I have another meeting this week with them to hash some of this out. She's reached out to our inspector that's part of the whole salon side of things, because it has a special licensing in itself, to make sure we get all this right. But I deep down think this is the solution that we're looking for in order to make cosmetology a bigger program and more students get into. But I don't want to leave health behind. I think health is one we have to really look at and get more kids into. Go ahead.
Matt, if you're saying we can expand Cosmo for 180, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
What are you gonna need to expand and move to health? There's gotta be an expense there.
20,000 was the rough budget for the health.
Building-wise, there's really nothing though, right?
There is a little. So when you go into the health, in doing the renovation, we have 4 classrooms that are like general use classrooms. We have 2 teachers to fill those 4 classrooms currently. The 2 teachers are professional skills and math. And they took the 2 classrooms that were back to back right down this hallway, down this way. And they're back to back. And the other 2, computer networking, is temporarily in until they get moved into their new space. And the other one's right on the other side of this wall, which we were kind of calling the SGI as the small group instruction area, meeting room, since we had this large group instruction area. Kind of an open classroom. Yes, it would be used for different purposes, but it's an open classroom. And so I said, we can move professional skills there and math to there, Those classrooms are already set up with the TVs and the tables and the chairs as part of the renovation already. They're ready to like plug and play. With health, when you go into their theory room, they got the hospital beds and the dummies and some storage. The main thing is that medical cabinet. It's just like this double storage cabinet, double sink. So that is the $20,000 that I'm budgeting for health, to put that exact same thing down in those classrooms down there. I've already met with the architects, looked at the engineers, we're not cutting floors. We got tie-ins, we got drains, we got a restroom on their side where we can do the wastewater, and we're basically just going through walls.
Now, what do you, on your road trip where you went and visited, when they have 2 teachers per room, does
It's
it
not
ever
2 te-
become a
It's-
conflict? You know, we're teaching here, you're teaching here, does it become a noise distraction or?
So,
We're already doing it. I asked him a similar question. We're already doing that in auto tech, because we've got 2, and they just have to share their lab space, and then they go back and forth. One's doing theory, one's doing that. For years, construction trades, we did that. I mean, it's a bigger area, but you had different ones in the morning and afternoon, the 2 teachers doing, that's only 1 now, but in culinary, you've got 2 teachers. So we're already doing a lot of that. It's just with these labs we have.
with our labs, you look at the kids here for 2 hours and 45 minutes. You have 2 spaces. One of the spaces is usually free the whole entire time, because they're in theory for an hour or whatever, 45 minutes depending on the lab. Sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's an hour and a half. And then they shift over to the other space. This one's empty while that one's full, and that one's empty while that one's full.
Are they in a lab this size in this room or smaller?
So health is like 2 classrooms. You've been in the Cosmo Salon, where there's the salon side and then there's the classroom side. So pretty much when we were at Central Westmoreland, they're like, wait, I said, you got 3 teachers and you got 1 theory room? Yeah, we all rotate 45 minutes in theory. And actually the one teacher loves the theory and we like the lab, so she rotates and has the group for 45 minutes, next group for 45 minutes, next group for 45 minutes, and she's our lecture-based teacher, while we're the hands-on based teachers, right? And so yeah, you gotta make sure that there's a good cohesive team of teachers working in that space. Those ladies were lovely. I look at Lisa and Julie that went down, and those ladies were lovely, and they were like, listen, you're stealing all these ideas from us, we're gonna come up and we wanna see your new building. But yeah, teachers have to work together. So our auto tech and culinary, they have 2 theory rooms, 1 lab. So the 2 teachers in auto tech have their own theory room. So health won't have that. They'll have 1 theory room and 1 lab. However, as we scale this up and health gets bigger, they are right across the hall from another space that once computer networking moves out, becomes an available space for down the road. If health continues to grow, I could see where we would actually use the back half of precision machining that's computers right now, like closing that off and making that an extra space for health. Because I really think health is one that is only going to grow. The industry is there, the interest is there. We're turning away 38 kids, that want to come into health next year. That's turning away. Now, if we add 20 in, now we're turning 37 away from Cosmo, and we're turning 18 away from health. We're still turning 18 kids away from getting into nursing that want to get into nursing, or a pre-nursing type program. Now, if you scroll down, there's some numbers of the budget. So we went through all the history there. And so, is it on the next page? It's on the next page, right there. And so we kind of said, okay, if we do all 3 next year, emergency protective services, which we're definitely doing, Cosmo 2 and Health 2, what does that look like to you guys? Our current tuition rate's $8,131 per student. Rough estimate, $165,000 to add 1 program. So for the 3 programs, our total budget add is $500,000. there's a teacher at 100,000, there's equipment and supplies for 50,000, and a half a support staff at 15 is where I got that 165 per program. And so when we look at, okay, 20 new students, I put 8,400 as the rough estimate, just based on a 3% inflation. There's the 168,000 that covers the cost of adding a program. When you do 3 programs, now we're talking 60 new students. What does that look like for you guys? 6 new students per district. On next year's budget, 6 new students per district. On the following year's budget as we ramp it up. When we start a new program, we don't put 48 kids right in the year 1, because then no one gets in for 3 years. We go like 20, 20, and then up to 48, and then at 8, so 30. Because there's always maybe a little bit of attrition out of 20, 1 or 2 kids, and so you end up building it down. So thoughts? Total curveball.
Tell us what the superintendent's thought, because you shared the numbers with them or not?
Yes. There were 2 superintendents that were not there. One had to leave early to go to a lawyer meeting with a lawyer, and the other one wasn't at the meeting. All of them really sat there and thought, in my opinion, this is great. We can do Cosmo 2, and it totally makes sense to Health 2. And we can carry that lift of $50,000 extra. Now, that's for those programs, right? And with our growing enrollment in our other programs, there is going to be a lift there on your local budgets as well. But, they all just, Matt Bennett, Union City said, this is what's best for kids. We can't be turning 38 kids away from health with our healthcare industries screaming for people. This is what's best for our kids. We got to figure this thing out on our district side of things.
And you're right about the demand for healthcare workers. My daughter and stepdaughter, since Christmas break from college, they've been working 12-hour shifts at Hammett and Meadville, both of them. It's just incredible.
So, the other thing that was brought up several times was the female-centric programming with our new programs that we add. And as we expand, and both of these programs, Health and Cosmo, are female-centric programs. And in my mind, that alleviates that discussion a little bit to where when we go and look at the filling of the second space, we can look at a program that's, a skilled trade that's really in need, like HVAC and plumbing, or heavy equipment, or something of that nature, where we're not balancing that discussion of female-centric, where we had the discussion with some of those other ones with vet tech and dental hygienists and some of the other ones that have been.
And just to recap, with all this happening, we still do have one empty space, lab space that we built.
One new for
Future,
Yes.
right, one new one.
That's the best part about it. Where the Cosmo 2 project in the spring proposed took away all of our new spaces, basically. This keeps where we have what's called room 9 and 10, those 2 new spaces. Room 10 is going to take emergency protective services. Room 9 is still open. And I think we're maximizing our space and expanding in a thoughtful way that is balancing student interest with that industry need, especially with the health side of things.
Matt, in the cosmetology wing, do we have enough electricity in that wing to double?
don't now.
Because I know originally.
So that's the 75,000 of the 180.
They were blowing breakers and stuff.
Yes, so that's 75,000 of the 180.
Of the 180.
Is, and one of the concepts that I have is I want this building to be kind of an open canvas of student work. Like, I want our students to do projects. I want them, that's what I loved about Central Westmoreland. We walked down there and I'm like, this is all the things I had ideas on. And they're like 3 years ahead of us because their director got hired 3 years ago and they're doing it. They're adding pool barns where the kids are building the foundation and building up these metal barns for extra lab space. Like, that are just kind of like pool barns, but they give you outdoor storage and extra lab space that counts for going to teacher labs and whatnot and expanding. And And, that to me is what's gonna be great. I want the kids to make this part of their projects. So when I talk about that, we're ripping out a wall, we're doing that, I don't want the contractors, like, they're done and gone, like, they're gone. I want our kids to do it. I've talked to Tracy Masello, one of our former teachers, who did a lot of work back in the day with his other teachers that were here on the skills center, that when they built all that stuff over there. I said, Tracy, will you be like this project manager and take our kids and run them through this? And kind of oversee it. And he's like, absolutely, that sounds great, I'd love to do that. So, there's logistics to work out there, but.
Electrical,
But the electric I'm not messing around with, that's Church and Murdoch, 75,000 of the 180 is running a whole new panel and changing that layout. One of the problems we had with the electrical is the layout, where they have all those floor boxes.
Yeah.
And where they're not plugged into all the floor boxes. They have 2 units plugged into one floor box, and that's what's tripping it, is they're using both sides.
Yep.
This allows us to expand and actually use those floor boxes a little bit better. But I'm also looking to change some of the equipment they use. They have all those stations that are portable stations that are 2-sided and stuff. And again, on the cheap, making this happen, you can run a mirror all the way across that wall, and you can put a countertop below that and run electric on the bottom and go chair, 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 chair. They don't have to be these portable fancy stations that, like, to me, that's one of the things that we're looking at doing, is how do we make all these chair stations kind of a more efficient way of using our money than buying to replace those, because we looked at that, to replace those is like $60,000 in new equipment, to replace those stations. Those were purchased in 2007. So part of that tripping was, yes, like, okay, are we as efficient, are we matching loads, are we have equipment right? And they gave me that change order for $60,000 to run a second panel. And that's when I shut that down and said, no, we're not gonna do that, that doesn't feel right. This to me feels right to make Cosmo 2 happen. Now, the argument we said before of, some of our programs are pretty elite, like, because we do a ranking system with the applications, right? They gotta get recommendations, they gotta get this, there's GPA, behavior, attendance grade, all is ranked. And when you're only getting 14 kids out of 60 in, you're getting a very high rank. And, now that we're letting more in, we're gonna get maybe not as elite student into cosmetology and maybe health and that kind of stuff, but we'll be getting more students. And to me, that's right, because it's free and appropriate public education. It's not meant to be, we're not meant to be, no, only the elite get into health, only the elite get into Cosmo, in my opinion. We've discussed that.
Now, we'll stay under our old contract, so we don't have to go back to our districts, right? We're gonna.
No, yeah, this is
Still part of the
part of the
original-
renovation.
Okay.
This is part of the contingency funding to make this happen. And your contingency fund is not high enough to do Cosmo 2 at 640 at all, right? Like, but this to me is the answer where we'll get this done within that run.
But didn't the last time we discussed this, was there a time period where we had to, or that contract
There is.
expired?
Well, there is in the fact that with these contractors doing the work, there is a realm, that's why I'm trying to get the electrical done. Like, we're getting the bids, we're getting the drawings, we're trying to get it done attached to this job. But one of the things with the contingency funds and stuff, the way I understand it is, the unspent money doesn't go back to the district, it turns into our capital project reserve fund. So if we have $200,000 left, we're not going back and giving 10,000, or 20,000 each district. That's going into our capital projects for then upkeep of the building.
But is that why you wanted to have it approved by the end of January, so we meet all these deadlines and we don't have to worry about those things?
That is part of it, absolutely, yes.
You've got painting of lockers that are happening in the summertime, that's still part of the renovation. So we're not gonna be, they're hoping by the end of January to be done with this last big piece.
It's not
But
gonna
they're
be
still
punched
gonna
out.
be, yeah, they're gonna have price. It's gonna be a while.
There's landscaping, yeah, you saw that, I put a little report in there.
Yeah.
These are the things that they still have to get done, and there's still a significant punch list. So,
Which Perry, I know, aren't they going next door with the state police? And I see they got that.
they get a state police one,
Yeah.
So they're not gonna be far away either, I mean.
they're headed to Mill Creek. I mean, I know our foreman's headed to Mill Creek, January 2nd. He's where all lives in. I mean, there'll still be Perry guys here.
But comments, questions, I
Yeah, I
guess
have a
the
couple.
one thing I want you to think about is there anything else, we're not asking for approval tonight, but what else does Matt need to do before next month's meeting for approval? And as you talk to your superintendent,
Yeah,
so.
I
yeah.
like the idea.
I like the idea, but last, 2 months ago, you give us apple pie, now this month you give us pumpkin pie. Are we gonna have cherry pie next month? We have one.
Listen,
I mean,
the whole
you're
key was the
absolutely-
number.
yeah, actually, there's so.
Adamant against the Cosmo 2, I didn't think it was
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
640,000, we
Well,
couldn't do.
yeah, well, I don't disagree with that. Why didn't we look at that 180,000 2 months ago or 3 months ago?
Because we didn't send them on a field trip, see?
Oh,
We
God,
didn't take a
dang
field
it.
trip where we picked other people's brains.
I don't disagree
What
with
a
that.
new way to slice that pie.
I think that should have been researched before you took a lot of effort into selling us on something else. I mean, I don't mind going to used car salesman and tell me this is the greatest car in the world, and I look at it and there's no floorboards in it, but it's the greatest car in the world because it's the only car left.
Well, Dennis, I've only been your director since July 1st.
I know that, I don't disagree with
Since
that, but
May
you
1st,
you
but
spent a
yeah.
lot of time selling us on not.
Absolutely.
On not having cosmetology. I mean,
Non,
I got lectured for a long time when we were telling all this thing. And that's what I feel like today we're getting pumpkin pie, last week might be cherry, well, and next week, I mean, blueberry, and it might be like another thing. I just.
Just gotta eat a little crow, that's all.
Yeah,
I like every kind of pie.
So the biggest debate.
I didn't say we didn't like getting pie, but we had to make a decision. We only have a decision. We only have so much money to spend, and I don't, it's all good in theory. The reality is, I talked to you before the meeting that I was all for cosmetology, and I don't care how much it cost, but you beat the heck out of me and talked me out of it.
I did.
I was at the whipping post, I felt like, we can't go with this cosmetology.
I'm sorry I missed September's meeting, Dennis, because I'd have been right with you.
I told him this when I so upset, turn away all these young ladies. Only reason I said, my comment was, it's cheap for the parents to send somebody to cosmetology, go here and learn it, and when they get done, they say they absolutely hate it, then their parents didn't have to pay one penny.
Well, none of them absolutely hate it, but man, the number of people we talked to that went through cosmetology here and don't work in cosmetology.
Well, it's because.
He has a
These guys-
relative, yeah.
Right,
We
because
interviewed a couple
they went to
people.
the service, and they love the cosmetology, but they don't like talking to people. And you have to be.
The argument for cosmetology too was student interest. It's still there.
I know it is.
The argument against cosmetology too was the cost. The fact that I don't know that the industry is that at need, as much as at need as the other skilled trades and so forth, but it's still there. Like, it's not like we're saying that's not there. What I'm saying is, I found a solution to make this
I
happen
don't disagree with that, I'm just.
in a
trying to-
financially responsible
You're
way
talking-
with our team of people that we feel
Man,
comfortable
let's talk a little
moving
bit.
forward.
Terry Brink might even come back now if we approve.
No, but.
And he's trying to say
Hey,
something.
this chair's right, I'll pull it right out for it.
One more thing is, I haven't had my hair cut for like 4 years. My wife, she said, well, you're gonna have to go, and of course, I never did a very good job. She went up to Penny's. Have you ever been to Penny's salon? The chairs are there, literally, they're elbow to elbow. I mean, our room is like twice as big, and they have twice as many people there. Who's that? Everybody went to Penny's?
Don't go to pennies.
Okay, but they have.
Dennis, we'll give you
chairs
the
are just-
evening hours, the Cosmo's now running evening hours.
Right, but like this way, I'm gonna check on that. But you watch, and the chairs are set up, almost like you were saying, how they're set up on a mirror, and they were really close together, and it was just chair, and they move the chair away and you sweep underneath it, and I thought it was remarkable. You said this, and that's what Penny's was set up. It's pretty darn tight. I mean, the person next to you getting their hair cut, I mean, they swing around and their hair's fall on you.
Off I go there.
Your field trip has made me very happy.
Well, I'm all for it, I just wanted to make my comment that, I mean, I got the whipping post and the.
Well, the other things we have in our field trip was, I canceled painting the whole front lobby, in case you're wondering with the renovation project. Because I want the students to do shiplap walls and do some projects and murals and stuff like that. So I cut that out of the So, you know, we want this to be, in my mind, I want this place to be a canvas where student work is on display. I want our enterprise accounts where students are doing things that are like modeling real world business. And we have that currently, like with culinary, selling things in some places. But I want every single one of these programs to kind of make it to where these students are really guiding this and doing neat things. And, you know, I mean, we went down there. How cool was the electrical? The electrical was the coolest part. I mean, they were taking conduit and bending it and making like sailfish light up Christmas decorations that were 8 foot long. And then that's what, they sell those and make a little money for their
Don't tell my
program.
wife that.
But they're learning how to bend conduit and they're doing art stuff with it. I mean, they just had some neat stuff down there. But, you know, that's what we're looking for out of here. I agree completely. I was totally against Cosmo 2. It just didn't make sense to me. They couldn't write off $640,000. I can stomach $180,000 to make Cosmo 2 happen. We have renovation funds. It's there. That's the purpose. You cannot deny the argument of student interest. We know it's there.
And you still have your 2 spots. That to me was the biggest concern. Denny's been trying to say something.
So initially, when I saw the numbers, I'm like, gosh, we need another program. And then, you know, as we thought about it and talked about it, the union talked to us and really, they would rather us invest elsewhere was what we got. Now, maybe they'll come in next month and tell us something different, right? But their take a couple, you know, over the summer was not against cosmetology, but there's lots of other opportunities we need to get hold of. So, I mean, it kind of leaves me with 3 questions because you changed my mind, right? So I'm interested at this point. And just because it's 160 doesn't change my mind back, because I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, first of all, you know, where's the support going to be from the teachers, the instructors? I'm looking at it and I'm asking the question of how many of these kids are going into those careers? Which of these programs are they going into the careers or related careers? I'm even good with related career, you know, because if we've got, you know, we're graduating.
It's not high in Cosmo.
That's right. It's so are we just creating a study halls kind of, so to speak, to let kids that want an easy route? You know, we're just creating another one so kids can get through? Because if they're not really serious about it and going into it, it's hard for me to imagine. I mean, I'm looking at metal fab. I mean, you go to metal fab, you're making $60,000 to $80,000 off the bat. What are you making in cosmetology?
I've already asked a couple of our local businesses for $200,000 to build a pool barn outside of Metal Fab
Yeah,
and get it to a 2-teacher lab.
Right.
I'm working on that.
I know,
Anytime.
so I guess what I'm
But I
saying
agree.
is, for me to change my mind at this point, obviously I'll talk to our board about it, but for me to change my mind back at this point is that there's gotta be, you know, I wanna know what the success rate, and to me, success is kids going and using those skills in some way. I wanna know what the demand is, where, you know, is there a demand for us to graduate another, 12, 14 Cosmo kids a year?
16 a year. 16?
Is there a demand for it? And even then, if they're not going into it, it doesn't matter if there's a demand, you know, and then, you know, new programs too. If you take, the other question I'm thinking is, if, even doing what you're saying, what if we didn't do that and Cosmo stayed like it is? How many spaces, because you're doing a lot of shifting and moving and to make that work without using the 2 new classrooms we're creating, what if you don't do that to Cosmo? How many more programs can we add then? I mean, right now we're at 1, we have space for a second one. If we don't do
That
Cosmo,
back-to-back classroom could be a
right,
space for
and if we
another.
don't do Cosmo, does that make space for a 3rd?
It does.
Right, so I mean, that's, you know, we could theoretically add 3 programs by the sound of it. It just, for stuff that maybe is in more demand. than cosmetology. I just,
We can't even fill one of the most demanding classes.
I get
Precision
that.
machine.
Precision
I
machine,
get
we can't get nobody to do that.
I get it,
Okay,
Does anybody know
I get it.
I don't know, there's gotta be a term for it. For students that start as a sophomore, move to junior, freshman, what's the dropout rate in Cosmo compared to,
Oh.
do we know that?
It's low, the retention rate.
Yes.
In the cosmetology lab traditionally has had a very high retention rate.
Again, because you're getting a small group for the ones that want, they know it's elite.
Right, yeah.
Right, so that will come down, but to me, that's a success rate on an education basis from us. If we're putting students in a second and third choice because they wanna come here and we can't get them in there, that to me, and you're seeing that, you're seeing those students will drop out after a year or two, a year because it's not what they wanted to do. So to me, that's a success, understanding that will probably, retention will be harder with a double class potentially. Although there's still gonna be 15 or so that don't get in.
Well, actually, more than that, because these are old numbers. We just ran the numbers today. There are 76 students that will not get into
I heard that before we came here.
Cosmo's at 90 applications now. So, listen, I'm right with you, because I don't feel like the industry need for cosmetology is there. However, I am not a female, and I had a couple of our superintendents that are. Really hard push to say, try to make an appointment and see how long you wait.
Yeah, one of our members that doesn't show up, she was big.
It doesn't matter if we graduate them if they're not going to do it.
I know, but I mean, that's traditional
You know,
Cosmo everywhere.
same for
Like
mine.
13 to 15% of the kids actually stick with it and stay in the field.
Mine has 4 chairs and 2 of them are being used. So I have to call, for a guy getting a haircut, it's a week in advance if I want a haircut.
Problems that we have, Mike.
So, one of the things I think that'd be helpful for the discussion when you call us for a vote, the superintendents, they look at this, the finance officers are gonna really need to look at this, because you're making the assumption that we're all getting 6 seats. Let's be realistic. We're not all getting 6 seats. Mill Creek might not take any seats of this. We might, you might take 14 of this, once the distribution's out. What is the real cost per district once you see how the seats are flowing? Because when you look at this and you say 6, okay, I can take that in my budget. But if you're taking 24, that is a whole different animal, right? Like, I know that Mill Creek will take its 2 if we do it. We'll take the 2 cosmetology seats. There's no doubt in my mind that there are 2 Mill Creeks. But our trend over the last 4 years, we keep going down every year. The school's growing, but Mill Creek's going the other way from the growth of the school. So we're shedding our seats to other districts.
Good. You got other
So for the smallest, I think you really need to know what the potential target impact of your finances are.
Yeah, and if you look at that number at a per student, I was thinking about this even before you said that, but I'll say that. Remember, your district controls how many come out here and in what programs. I mean, when they're offered, right? We're going back to the guidance counselor and saying, here it is. So if there is an issue financially, that, I'm sure it's done behind the scenes and out of the spotlight, but that does happen, it can happen. Just because that's our allocation doesn't mean we're utilizing it or that you have to.
So I know Sandy's at the ready over there, so I'm looking at Sandy, because you just ran this report, just did all this work today of, here's the applications by district, the number of seats, who's got filled, all that good stuff. Did you do emergency protective services or not?
I did emergency protective.
So I'm just using that one because that's the really only new one. Health and cosmetology have wait lists that are big enough that 2 seats per district is realistic. Because, you got 50 kids you're turning away from health. So, yeah, you may not have 2 exactly from each district, but you're at least gonna have 1. Cosmetology, you're turning away 76 kids. You're gonna have 2 per district most likely. So I look at emergency protective services. When you look across there, what districts are underrepresented in the applications? Are there any that don't have any or maybe more?
Iroquois had none. and Wattsburg had that. But we have 29 applications.
First choice.
First choice.
Applications. Iroquois has no one signed up, and Wattsburg has no one. So now, okay, those 2 seats would then go and to the
Mill
best
Creek,
rank.
Mill Creek if they allow it.
They only have 2. They get 2.
They only get 2.
They only have 2 applications.
Oh, okay.
So
Girard.
if you have 29
So
applicants for that class, how many spots are available? 20.
So we're still turning around
So
way
you're
now.
still gonna turn 9 kids away for that emergency services new class.
And that's only on applications of first choice. And with emergency protective services, you have internal transfers that will be an option. Because there are kids that are like first-year students here, have the opportunity to transfer to that. And we have probably a half dozen that have already said, oh, I want to go to that, I want to go to that, I want to go to that. So when we look at 20 seats, you know, we roughly say 2 per district, but it's,
It could be less.
yeah, we're gonna give our internal transfers that kind of that first look for them to get to the position, you know, the right kid for the right seat, for the right program for the right reason type scenarios, one-liners that's been used here in the past. We're gonna allow those kids to shift. We're gonna fill those seats then, you know, through a 1.5 quota per district to fill that 20. So, you know, she has 0 Mill Creek kids there, but there could be a Mill Creek kid that's already on campus that then, when we open that up to our current students to apply in January, they could transition over, just so we're aware.
How often does it happen? Back to what Mr. Ford was talking about. If we have 71 kids at one end of Cosmo, and say we don't expand, how many of them give up on ECTS altogether?
It was about half last year, if I recall correctly.
They don't take the second choice.
They don't, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of times, and the problem we're gonna have this year, our applications are through the, Michael, how many did we have total last year?
Well, just to bring up a point, I'll bring that up. So our school mint system, our online admissions tracks data trends. So just to make sure, to answer Sandy's question, at the end of last season, so we're talking the beginning of this school year, if we look at the beginning of this school year, we had 513 total families did 1 or 2 applications at 973. So that is August of 2023. We are now in December of 2023. So if I switch to this year, watch the number. The number now goes to 607, 1,155 applications.
And we still accept applications
All the way through.
the end of the year. You know, we still kind of enroll the open programs into July.
Are you able to break
Ideally,
that
we
by
want it all
district?
done ahead of time.
What's that?
Are you able to break that by district on the screen quickly?
Well, I can do it by a district. What would you want to see yours?
Well, just, if you look at the
Yeah, we
district.
all want to see Mill Creek.
Let Michael say that.
116 first choice
There you go.
applications.
Pardon?
And you have 116 first choice applications, you have 112 students enrolled.
And those applications are all new sophomores.
They may not all be
There
sophomores.
may be some new
Oh,
juniors,
okay.
a couple
There
new
may be a couple
seniors.
juniors and seniors.
But new
For the
applicants.
first year, new people too, yes, not.
But of our 607 applications, and I saw it a week ago, it was like 50 kids were juniors applying, 500, you know, sophomores. He can get that breakdown pretty quick, right?
There's your breakdown. So 1,087 10th graders, 63 11th graders, 12,
That's
5.
That's apps though.
That's
That's
applications,
That's
not
first and-
students,
That's
yeah.
first and second.
Let me turn on just first choice. I'll just do first choice. All right, if I go down to first choice now,
You can lose a lot of days on this thing.
572, 32, and 3. 3 seniors, 32 juniors, 572 sophomores next year.
I totally understand about the Cosmo, and I was a big advocate for going for the second Cosmo class. Until obviously I saw the expense, and then I'm still disappointed because it went from, maybe 300,000 to 600,000. And I understand what Mr. Fortin is saying as well, and then your admin team, when they said only 20% of the graduates go on to use that. But then when you tell me we could lose 50 kids or whatever that don't come to ECTS because we're not offering what they want, where's the happy medium? And,
But if you had two programs that maybe they do want, a vet tech.
oh,
program
yeah, absolutely.
Or something like that.
I don't
Full
think,
disclosure, our admin team was split on whether I should move this direction. I was the one that said there was so much pressure from the superintendents that they wanted Cosmo 2. By moving this direction and making that stakeholder group happy, we will probably have a lot more wins down the road, I'm guessing, as a team with that group rallying, staying, supportive and so forth.
you're trying,
I went to health, I kind of guilted them on health. I just said, I don't feel comfortable doing Cosmo and not doing health. Like, that to me is not right, knowing the industry demands that are there.
Another stakeholder group.
Absolutely.
Right.
Because that to me is wrong, because we just talked about, what's the industry out there? Health is screaming, manufacturing is screaming, right? Construction is screaming, but so is student interest over here screaming about Cosmo. And why are the superintendents and the guidance counselors, because I talked to them as well at their earlier meetings, so they were disappointed we weren't doing Cosmo 2 because there were so many families and students that wanted it.
Yeah, to,
Help me figure out how to do metal fact 2.
Danny, I think
We need space there.
one of the things that I thought about long and hard for, I was on the fence, even before the funding, the money, because of exactly the things that you said. However, I have a friend of mine graduated in the 90s, precision machining, or whatever it was called back then. Got a job with his co-op. He's still working today at that exact same place. Same employer from out of here. He had 2 kids. One's graduated, went here through one of the programs, is gainfully employed in that program. His daughter, though, came here last year, wanted to get into Cosmo, didn't get in. So her second choice was sports medicine, the new program. She's 1 year and she's gone. Okay? It was not what she wanted. She tried it for a year. She would be here if it was Cosmo. Now, is she going to be in that profession? May not, but she would have been a student here for 3 years. So, is that, it may not be all the right reasons, but, again, that was one of the superintendent's point before is, what's our job? I think we have to listen to as many stakeholders as we can and do what we can. If we can, we can. If we can't, we can't. But to me, that's a personal face on it that, if she could have got in, she still may not have with that wait list, but yet that would have been more students like that.
So is that, this plan that's being presented, is that the happy medium? That you're trying to find that happy medium?
This is totally a happy meeting.
Correct.
Of superintendents, I mean,
Right. You're
very upset.
You're satisfying demand,
that I was
let's just put it that way.
poo-pooing Cosmo
In the multi-sided die here, you're satisfying demand in this plan. I'm not for or against it, I'm just trying to summarize. You're satisfying demand, but you're also allowing a new program,
and
protective
saving space
services,
for other
and saving
programs.
space for a third program potentially, or a second program potentially. And then, a potential new program, I should say. And that would be, maybe that's another market trend analysis, that's another thing that, that's been discussed in the past as, as something to look at in the future. But it allows you to kind of split the goalpost here of those two kind of competing things. Maybe not so much market driven, but certainly demand driven. And we satisfy one of our dual mandates, to provide that.
And so I'm a floater. I like to talk about this, float these ideas out.
Yeah.
Let people get their heads wrapped around it, bring the stuff back before voting on it. So that's why I said, I'm gonna bring it to you in January to vote. I do wanna be able to move though in January. We gotta make decisions for our enrollment purposes. It's not fair to the students to enroll and then change and shift and stuff like that, open program delay. But,
That gives everybody time to talk to the superintendent. Obviously, the superintendents, most of them were there and most of them were definitely in favor of it. So it's a good
and
opportunity.
they've been given all the same numbers and stuff that I put in my board report, I shared with them. Discussed it with our subcommittee last Tuesday, this Tuesday. I mean, there were some very strong opinions of superintendents, like, wait a minute, I thought Cosmo 2 was a done deal. You're pulling this rug out from underneath us, and they were not happy with me on that.
So will the superintendents bring this to an actual local board district action as a motion or as a proposition or as that it doesn't need to rise to that level? Or it could?
We control that.
Yeah,
That's
you can do
Agreed,
that.
oh, absolutely, I'm
You
asking.
can bring it to the board.
I absolutely can.
You can
Right,
tell
put
them-
that on my agenda,
Right.
you can make that go as a motion,
Yeah.
or as a proposition
Right.
to move forward with that plan or not.
That's what you're the representative.
Correct.
For here, for your district.
Well, that's where I was headed with that.
That decision is
Whether
based
those,
on
whether
the
those superintendents were going to do that as you left that meeting,
Yeah.
whether they were going to do
They
that.
were, I don't believe that, but I know several of those superintendents said, I gotta go back with my board and totally change this narrative.
Right.
Because my board, we thought we were approving this to happen.
Right.
Not just to explore it. Where in April, I mean, that was my first meeting, I was a week in. I totally felt like we were just exploring numbers, that it wasn't an automatic Cosmo 2's happening. And I know it wasn't popular for me to pull the rug out on Cosmo 2, but I couldn't get behind it at the tune of
We were happy, that's all.
Speaking of, somebody mentioned precision machining earlier and how would be nice to get more. I hosted 2 young gentlemen at my shop a couple of Saturdays ago, friends of family who worked for me. And I had 2 freshman boys in there that are considering precision machining in a couple of years. And I've told them, spread the word, anybody that wants to come see, what machining's about, we can bring them into our shop at any time. So,
The open house had 4 businesses here at the open house.
so
Try to
hopefully,
recruit people, directors.
we can fill that class.
4.
Because you're right, there is a
That'd be
higher
great.
demand.
And we actually had some of the student comments pulled out from, I applied because I came to open house and I talked to those businesses that were there. That's what made my decision go precision machining over a different one. Where are we at with precision machining now that a week has gone by? And
12 applications, so 13 open seats.
so,
Yeah, that was pretty neat. It was a nice open house. They had 4 representatives in there recruiting students.
Well, I would tell you this looking around the room, you guys are all newbies. I've been on here since 2006, 2005.
On and on.
Yeah, I was off for 2 years, but been here around. Sandy's been here a lot longer than I have.
Thanks.
But I don't think anybody else, I think, Tim was around back then too. It's like dinosaurs, but we have not had this kind of discussion, ever. And I think, no matter how you land, where you come, this is exciting. Just looking at our numbers, that's exciting. I mean, as high school enrollment through the entire county has gone down, with the exception of maybe Fairview, it's just that this is exciting to think we can add, not expand. Did we expand any programs in the last 20 years?
No,
No,
we've cut
just-
back.
Right, we've done 2 teacher to 1 teacher and some things like that.
Lost all cars, lost
Right,
electronics.
there's a lot of, this is exciting.
So what does this put our final capacity at? Right now, we're sitting 912, so what are we,
so our capacity right now is 1,008 students with the special ed programming, okay? 960 without. Obviously, adding 3 more programs would then add 48 times 3. What's that, 144?
so you're looking almost 1,100.
Yeah.
And knowing that our fill rate's at about 90%.
Higher
Yeah,
than
we're like 99% capacity, yeah.
So 90% of 1,100.
One other point I'd like to make is, one of the things when I
So
presented to the superintendents, I also pulled kind of market share for Warren, Crawford, Venango, and Erie counties, right? So when you look at 10th, 11th, 12th graders in Erie County, and what percentage of those kids are going to the tech school versus Crawford, Warren, and Venango County, they're like 24, 27, 26% of the kids going through the tech school. We're at 13. We're like 12, 13 in the last 3 years. It's gone up a little bit, but
Can you pull and see what capacity is based on your question there? What's the capacity in those areas compared to what ours is here in comparison to their Percentage
size,
is one thing.
absolutely. Their capacities are in the
They've
round,
gotta
right
have
around
more
30,
capacity
33%. Well, we're at like 16, 17 if we filled.
So if we just take the enrollment number from today, right? So as of today, there's 812.
There's 812 in the 960,
Yeah,
yes.
so then we add, the programs you're talking about are gonna be theoretically full.
It takes 3 years, but yeah, there'll be a third full first, like 20 students at a time.
So
We're at 60
looking,
students.
960, 970. What else does that do to the structural budget from the staffing? Are we staffed appropriately across the rest of the admin and function where all we're adding are the teachers for those programs? Or do we now have to start to talk about, we've added another 144 bodies to this building, what else needs to give to support that increase?
Correct.
Because that's not a small jump.
Custodial,
Custodial,
support staff,
what is it on your team?
secretarial, admin.
When, it's just not. So when we start to put these here, we have to also realize that it's not just the program, it's all the peripherals that support the program. And let's make sure that we have a full, I'm not saying that we, by no means am I trying to impress the thing. I want a full picture of what it actually means, because it's great to say, yes, we're gonna move, but can we afford to move? Can the districts afford it?
So I think a question for Matt for next month would be is, when those programs are full in 3 years,
What is our structural budget?
we're already talking about some ads.
So when you look at that cost per ad of the, kind of like, okay, what's the cost to add a program at 165? Now, that was a teacher, very generous $50,000 of supplies and equipment annually. And then a half of the support staff. So the half support staff, I was looking at instructional aid, we have part-time aid, so I was looking at half of one of those positions. That was then 20 students, covers that cost. The second year, when 20 more students come in, that cost stays the same. The 160 comes in again, in more enrollment, in tuition roughly. And so that's where then, okay, and adding a secretary, admin, whatever that's where that ends up getting absorbed down the road. When you look at the per pupil tuition, that's got all that in that, right? So the 8,100's got all that in that already. So we're probably, there was a lot, how many secretaries were here? Sandy, I'm looking at you 10 years ago.
Probably 6.
And we're down to 4. And so secretary is probably gonna be the first one to move of an ad as we expand and get more programming. There's a potential problem. Secretarial support would be first. Admin-wise, I didn't have it on my radar to add. I just pushed these guys farther is all I was thinking. I don't know.
It would be nice if we could fill all the other positions that they're having to fill right now. If we get all those filled, then it'll be better.
Custodial, part of that MOU was having an instructional aide and a custodian when we give them the secretarial positions.
Realistically,
Those are
equally
positions that have
distributed.
already been there and have been taken away or been there.
So you're saying because of the additional enrollment, that additional admin cost would be absorbed, so therefore it's not even a zero-sum game, it'd be a plus-sum game, is what you're saying?
It'd be plus some.
On the admin
On the
side.
other backside.
We're
Let's
probably
just say
gonna need a
it's equally
secretary.
distributed,
Yeah.
and you're talking roughly, $1.1 million more in pupil funds coming in. You break that down by the 11th district, now you're talking roughly $107,000 per district year 3, if it's equally distributed. So,
Yeah, we can talk
when am I,
next
I'm always
year.
thinking about what this is
yeah.
gonna be.
I should be
So we need
complaining
to
about
start
Jordan
thinking,
at most
I'm
schools.
not saying no, but we also need to
I
be
should be
realistic about what
Absolutely.
does budget.
So, after 2 years.
And those numbers were the ask of the superintendents for me to put together kind of those rough plans.
And I'm not bitching, 'cause we,
Well, you did earlier.
I'm bitching about because we cut it. Because our superintendent took the whip and told me, I thought that was a damn done deal.
Sorry. Okay. Yes, sir.
I'm trying
just a question.
I'm trying to just appease all the stakeholders and do it fiscally responsibly.
I know we talked about a lot of people not going into cosmetology and not going into the field. Have we gotten any feedback from the ones who don't go in cosmetology that come back and say, that was the worst decision I ever made by taking cosmetology while I was in high school? I think it could actually be a positive because they're finding out after they go through it, I don't wanna do that. And I'm assuming that the program is also offering them some other skills. They might not be cutting hair, but they're probably learning budgeting, how to run a business, some other steps that they can take in their career.
Tons of anatomy. and
Yeah, so it's
cosmetology
not
that
a
goes into healthcare.
complete waste, and kids aren't coming back and saying, gosh darn it, I went to the Erie County Technical School when I was in high school. That was such a bad decision. If that's not happening, the numbers and what the kids are saying, always been like, my sister went to cosmetology at Crawford County. She's now a teacher. She didn't go into that.
But she uses,
She uses some of those skills that she has when she was pregnant and laid off. She would cut hair in the evenings for people.
I was gonna say.
So there's all these other things. So even though, and I'm not a proponent of cosmetology, but if it's what the students want, that's what I'm gonna give them. And if I don't have the budget, it's my job and my district's job to find a way to give the kids what they want. And I probably have the smallest district, and I don't have a lot of kids at Erie County Technical School, I don't think, but we're trying to promote it and get more kids into it because I think it is a good program. But to me, it's always been about the kids and what the kids want, not what the superintendents want. They work for me and our board. So it's what the kids want and the numbers, and the data show me the kids want cosmetology and they want health. And if we gotta figure out a way to work it in a few years financially, we'll find a way to make it work, because that's what the kids want. That's all I have to say.
Rick Rowe would be proud of you.
Buddy? Yeah.
He's barber.
All right, any parting thoughts on this? Because anyone can call me and we can have another discussion on the side and look at the things more, any concerns you have. And I'm the guy that said no Cosmo 2, no. Now I'm flipping that script. And the only reason why I feel like we can do this is because we're in that 180,000 range versus 600. Okay. A couple other things just to note. Our CLNA meeting is scheduled for January 19th. I have some of those in my notes. It'll be a lunch meeting. Anyone's welcome to come. We're 11 to 1 there. And that's every 2-year cycle of what are our local needs in our industry, what's all the data, where are we seeing that. And that is part of what guides these discussions, ongoing improvement discussions of the organization.
Do you want somebody to call if you want to show up, or is it an open door policy?
It's an open door policy for you guys, but we'd love to know that you're coming so we can have, all the sign-in sheets updated that show that you're coming and whatnot. We applied for the PDE Competitive Equipment Grant application. It's something I don't believe the Erie County Technical School has done in the last 10 years or so. Focused on manufacturing, kept it to welding, $85,000 of equipment, and got letters of support from several of the manufacturers on our OAC committees of welding and precision machining. So I shot that out last minute to get letters of support, and I appreciate all that. Workforce Development Board endorsed us, so hopefully we'll get that $85,000. That is a matching grant. In the past, it's always been kind of a matching, like a 15% or 25% match type scenario. This year, the match was waived, but moving forward, we're gonna build that into our budget to make sure we can apply for that every year and build that match in there. Because, in talking with the other directors that I kind of haven't built a relationship with, they're like, yeah, we apply for that every single year, and we just budget that match in there, 25,000, and we're getting 85,000. So, to me, that's something we're going to stay on and keep working. I did have on last month's in October that we were applying for the supplemental equipment grant and the agricultural youth and that youth grant where we had those on there. I just kept them on there so you're aware of what applications I'm throwing out there. If you keep scrolling down there, a couple students highlighted. We have those Cosmo evening hours, and my daughter Macy has now become a regular client to come get her nails done and is enjoying that time. So they're trying to build their enterprise accounts. They're looking to build their program and do a really kind of culminating event of a field trip at the end of their program where they're headed to a major trade show in a major city. So That's part of what they're doing those evening hours for and building up to.
Same one they've been doing the last years, Chicago one?
Have they gone to Chicago in the past?
They are.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't think they're planning to go to Chicago this year, but
they're planning on New York City,
Oh, okay.
so, okay,
And since I've been on board, they went to Chicago like every other year.
okay.
Oh, that was-
That's their idea of part of that fundraising side of things.
Okay, so they're going to different locations.
And then the renovation report is the last one down there, I just have a couple sub-bullets on there. They're telling me substantial completion by the end of January over here, so at our January meeting, after we grab a bite to eat, we can walk over and we'll take a perusal through our innovation wing, where we have our computer-based programs, it's the last phase there.
Do you have the new maps made yet on how we get around?
It's easy to get around, you just don't know what's there.
It's a gray hall, you know, everything's got a color, we got a blue hall and a green hall, that's gonna be the gray hall. We had a big debate between gray and pink, and we went gray. Sorry, Lisa, I'm gonna giggling over there.
Arrows pointing.
She really wanted pink, and I said, I'd rather go gray hall than pink hall. Yes,
Your assistant principal asked you to paint the building pink this morning, so.
she did, yes, that's Brooke, her 3-year-old daughter. Yeah.
She must want Barbie too many times.
So those are the big ones, and then I have the Cosmo 2 expansion that we have the architects and engineers working on some new drawings there. And we'll, whether we move that forward or not is kind of the heavy debate. That's it for my report. With that, we can go to executive session and then start the meeting, unless someone else has questions for discussion.
Going somewhere?
Yes, I was just gonna take us over to hospitality and tourism, just like we've done in the past.
Threw a curveball at her. I see that.
I know, that's what I was thinking, we'll take them dear.
I'm gonna have to find, like, Christmas something back to this. Oh, I totally. I've got plates, napkins, and cutlery. I don't know what else to bring, but it's nice if people say.
Gonna move right to, foundation meeting now, right?
All right. All right. Call foundation meeting to order at 7:41. E, new district appointed committee members. There are 3. Terry from Harbor Creek, Dennis from Fort LaBeouf, and Dennis from Gerard.
Well,
Let's review.
everybody's on a 3-year, so then, it doesn't correspond with elections or anything else. so
Okay, I'll
it's-
just take your word for it.
It's
Did
weird.
you get reappointed for 3 years for your school district? Like I got reappointed for 3 years by my own name.
I wasn't even on the ballot this year.
No,
No. I just-
Oh, my school district.
school district, what is it?
Because we have.
I don't know, they did reappoint me.
I did send them an email and they said, yeah.
You were volunteered.
Well, you do that, we did like our district, we had elections and I got, told me reappointed and then got voted by the district.
So, Corey, do you get a motion on that?
Looking for a motion to accept the district reappointed
Moved.
committee members. Second.
Second, Gilbert.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Second.
Aye.
My name's spelled wrong.
All opposed, motion carried.
I did see that.
My name's spelled wrong.
Oh, is it?
I did see that with one, I said, this is strange, you only have one answer.
Oh, it is. It's okay. All right, on to roll call.
Mr. McManus, Mr. Fortin,
Yes.
Dr. Wise, Mr. Osnanick,
Here.
Ms. Brink, Mr. Publence,
Here.
Mr. Linder,
Here.
Mr. Boyd.
Here.
Mr. Ring,
Here.
Mr. Gilbert,
Here.
Mr. Morvay.
Here. All right, moving on. Presidential election. All right, call for nominations.
Correct.
All right, call for nominations to elect a new president.
I nominate Corey again.
All right. What's gonna nominate Steve Gilbert?
No, thank you.
I move to close nominations.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Great, Corey.
Thank you, everybody. All right, I'll continue on.
Who's our vice president now?
Steve.
Steve.
I nominate Steve.
Move to close nomination.
No discussion?
Don't read it.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
It's good to keep.
Welcome aboard, Steve.
Thank you.
All right, amendments, nothing. Meeting minutes. Motion to approve the meeting minutes from September 28th.
Move.
Second.
I
Number
agree.
one.
All right, all
Sam
in favor?
first, I second it. Sam Zalewski second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, new business.
This is what's complicated part right here.
All right, looks like we're looking for 2 motions. Jess, do you want to explain those?
Yeah. So the motions are, every year, we collect funds, we give gift cards for our kids in need, and the foundation matches whatever we collected, and it doesn't exceed $1,000. So how much, where's Julie?
640 was the count as of this afternoon.
$620 is
So
what we
it's staff
received.
donations to buy the kids gift cards and we give different kids things.
Same as we've done in the past.
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
So moved.
All right, motion for both of them?
Yes.
A second?
Well, I want to hear about the second one first.
Oh, you want to do separate?
We can keep them, but I just, because that's for the whole amount, right? The distribution for the Erie Community Foundation?
Yes. Yes.
We're
Do
doing,
you think that's necessary to pull it all?
no, we're just doing
No.
A, we're just doing A right now.
4A, B, yeah.
We're gonna go to B section, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. My thing only has, okay.
That
See,
was,
B is here.
Right.
Well, that's under
It's
there.
the same.
For A, B, for A, one.
no, this is another thing we're gonna show.
I'm good with that A and B there.
There's a 4AA and 4AB.
Yeah,
That's what's extra good.
A point B.
So one motion is to match, to approve the match, and the other motion is not to exceed $10,000.
Yes.
So motion to approve 4AA and 4AB. Yep.
So moved.
Second?
Second, your.
Or,
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, now the Erie County Community Foundation Fund Distribution.
There's the B I was looking
All right.
that's the one you're looking for, right? I have run through this
So
whole
what's,
thing yesterday.
yeah, what's the thought?
This one is, remember back in April, we were like, no, we don't need the money, so right now it's just, after going through all of the accounts and closing up the year, we use some of the general fund money to do the foundation, to give the money out for the.
Scholarship.
Yes, for the scholarship, so we have to pay back now the general fund. And I wanna be able to have enough, like a cushion to have money in there to do the gifts for the kids and pay back the general fund. So that's why I want to draw that money.
What's it,
By doing that much, we should have enough then for the next year, this next year too.
Yes,
pull up that statement.
Yeah.
Financial report, 6A.
Yeah, yeah,
Sorry.
I think that shows
would
the funding. I didn't run through this whole thing.
Which one do you want?
What's that one that shows the count?
the treasurer's report?
No, the fund count.
Fund
balance?
Statement of activities, I think.
No, the treasurer's report, you want the bank account balances?
No, the one that the statement of our fund.
You talking about the one that was negative?
No, I don't know what it was.
There's 307.
That one?
No, I don't know, one I looked at home, like, this is a statement. The one that's telling how much money is in the account, 200 and some thousand, right there, that's.
This one.
Yeah, right there, that one's negative, but, okay, I just wanna, that's, activities.
Jessica, did the foundation give a recommendation on percentage of distributions this year?
No.
No.
I think that was that earlier conversation. They tell us.
So most of the times, a foundation or endowment, they'll say, hey, this is your withdrawal amount this year based on interest rates, et cetera.
They did that back in April.
Right.
In April, it was that 10,000, they said you have this much to use and you have all year, you don't have to. Remember, it was a question like, if we don't use it, what happens? They're like, we'll just dump it back.
Right.
But you have all year to be able to get money.
Okay. So it looks like your 10,000 is within that recommendation.
Yes.
That's what I was wondering about, the recommendation, and that's what our fund is right now. It should probably be up, market went crazy in the last.
Right, yeah. If you look at the, I think, treasury report, one of them was, showed a negative based upon that money from the beginning of the year, but this last month would have taken care of it. Today probably took care of it.
Also, okay, so B's recommended, take the 10,000 at this time. You recommended, yeah, because like Dennis was saying, before we were recommending, we could take it out in April, but we didn't do it, now we're choosing to remove it today.
Let's have a motion on the table.
All right, can I get a motion to approve the Erie Community Foundation Fund Distribution in the amount of $10,511?
Okay, so moved.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carries. Financial reports.
We have discussion.
Sorry. It's okay.
Okay,
gotta
just
get
so
back
you
in the
know, balances. As of November 23rd, as of November of 2023, we have the cash in hand is $17,064.89. And the investment account is $290,566.28.
Motion to approve the financial reports.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Brings us to adjournment. Next meeting is, March 28th. All right, all in favor for adjournment?
Aye.
Opposed?
Who posted that? Sorry, go back. Who posted the
I don't
second?
think anybody motioned.
We all
We just agreed that we were adjourning by
Oh,
consent.
and Michael didn't.
Michael
It was
did.
unanimous consent.
Michael,
Yeah, thanks.
Sorry, we're messing you up.
Don't send me out of here, we are, so we're trying.
All right, turn the lights off. Motion.
Oh,
Thank you, Corey. Okay, let's call this other meeting to order then. Let's have a moment of reflection. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
big upgrade, big upgrade.
Great. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we have new district appointed committee, the same three, right, Terry? Dennis, with two N's, Fort and Dennis Alesnik. So we need a motion for that.
Motion, Lloyd.
Second, Gilbert.
Moved and seconded, any discussion on these three? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Now we get a roll call.
Mr. McManus, Mr. Fortin,
Present.
Dr. Wise, Mr. Rosanna,
Sure.
Ms. Brink, Mr. Koblenz,
Here.
Mr. Lindner,
Here.
Mr. Boyd,
Here.
Mr. Rain,
Here.
Mr. Gilbert,
Here.
Mr. Morvay.
Here.
Very good, chairperson election, open the floor for nominations.
I nominate Sam.
I'll second that.
More nominations?
Move to close.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Thanks, Sam.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I guess we didn't have to do that.
Should we have asked if you wanted to?
What's that?
Should we have asked?
No.
Now that it's done?
It's more, I was up for election, I didn't know if I was gonna make it or not, so I did, so
And you got reelected.
I'll keep going for at least another year. Vice chairperson election, and who is that now?
Gilbert.
Mr. Gilbert, okay.
I nominate Mr. Gilbert.
Second it.
Move to close. Motion.
Second, moved and seconded, we close nominations, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, we won't have to vote for you, because it's done. Moving on, we got, okay, were we at personnel?
Oh, no, that's just there.
It's just that we have
Just for
executive session.
executive session.
Gotcha, okay, we had an executive session just prior to this meeting for personnel, thank you very much. Amendments, we have, we don't have anything we added now, right? This was on, with the MOU was on here?
We're adding that, that's the amendment, because it wasn't there yesterday when
Okay.
yes,
Adding
we're adding it to the agenda.
And we really don't have anything else to add, right? So is there a motion to approve adding this?
So moved, Gilbert.
Second.
Moved and seconded, any discussion? All
That's
those,
the confidential secondary position, just so everyone knows.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? That's added, now we got meeting minutes.
Go back to, on our board, we make the deviation of the agenda, then we can vote on the new amended agenda. Is that all done in one?
That's what you just did.
Is that
So
all
you
done
didn't
in one
approve
step?
that yet. You just added it.
Okay.
So this wasn't on the agenda at all, the MOU?
It was missed, no, it was not on the agenda to begin with. It was sent to the board November 21st. So they all had it to review back on an email, but yeah, it wasn't on the agenda, the MOU.
You look that up, we'll keep going.
Well, my concern is that it is a contract. That,
It's a memorandum, actually.
right. So I don't think we can add it to the agenda at the present time.
Can we fill the position still?
We did have a agenda heading for positions, right? So we can can hire, we just can't approve this contract with the union. Of course, you need the contract with the union in order to hire. Right?
Yep.
Can we hire and ratify this MOU at the next meeting? Will the union
Actually,
accept that?
we can ratify the hiring at the next meeting also, because that's our agreement. We moved that earlier this summer to do that with the union employees.
We approved the hiring.
Right.
Retroactive.
So that's the question, is just should we hire officially or just wait to ratify this and that at the same time?
I have to ask Matt, I mean, if we don't approve this because we can't add it to the agenda, because you're no longer allowed to add this to the agenda under the new interpretation of the Sunshine Act, because it's a contract. Does that present a problem with the hiring of the confidential secretary?
So our current position is business office secretary, that we currently have. And we're moving it over to be a confidential secretary. So we can hire the business office secretary and then move it to the confidential secretary a month. And so I could do that.
You can do that.
We can hire her as the business office secretary and move her to confidential a month.
Change your job title next month.
We'll do this and that. Ready pay would be whatever it's already been agreed to. That's
Let's do that.
okay. So what do we do about this amended?
Well, when we get to wherever we're gonna put the amendment, we'll we'll just take it to the
We
next month.
change the agenda, but it doesn't matter. Just but okay. Meeting minutes.
Morvay, so moved.
Second one.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Elf on the shelf.
So, our school resource officer, Christina Yaney, has named herself Christmas Tina, and she's constantly trying to come up with new initiatives for student involvement and different things like that. So she brought in her children's elf, and she set up a schedule with all of the programs where they get a day with the elf. There's actually 3 of them, to be correct. They get a day, and their job is to pose the elf like the story goes, if you're familiar with it, because I'm not, and then take some pictures. And we've been putting it up on social media. She's been having a blast with it. The kids love it. The students are really trying, okay, this is where we can do the elf and stuff like that. So I just took the pictures that we have so far, because we still have to finish out this week. And so I just wanted to run through and show you some of the things that the students had come up with the elf. So although these elves do have other names that were named by her children, at ECTS we call him Eagle Eye Elf. So this is Eagle Eye Elf at Art and Design for Business. They created a gummy bear rock wall. Computer programming, he was just bebopping around the lab, getting into mischief. Same thing with computer networking, they put him inside computer parts and different things like that. Some of them would send me 10, 12 pictures and I would weed them down to just a couple. They had so much fun.
They did. They've had a blast. They started really getting into some good stuff in electrical engineering and some of these other labs. They've been having fun, that's for sure.
Don't touch those 2 wires.
That's right. Cosmetology, they had a little bit of a facial.
Mani-pedis.
Early childhood, the elf read a book to friends, got tied up in the laminator, did a couple other things. It really went buck wild in there.
We put this on social media and we're getting like National Honor Society liking our posts.
Yeah. Yep. Auto body repair, mixing paint.
These are great.
They had some very creative.
Yeah.
They spent a lot of time with this. You know, this was all student driven. In this one, the elf got an injury after lifting, so then they had to do a little bit of rehab there.
Which folks, bandied on.
Construction trades got stuck in the mortar. Drafting and design was all over the place. In the drafting room, went into the 3D printer, was at the epilogue.
Facility maintenance, doing a variety of tasks. There was a welding booth, all kinds of different things. Culinary arts went a little bit of a ninja style, and so those ribbons are the lasers going through to collect a cookie. Auto tech was all over the place, changing a tire. Is that it? Or did I?
Nice.
I did miss metal fab. I apologize. I missed metal fabrication. There were some sparks and fire in that one as well. They actually did a video, but the video was not able to upload to social media, so I had to hear about that one. But just some fun things. They're also doing a gingerbread decorating contest. You saw one in the Eagles Nest at dinner. They're doing a door decorating contest. They're collecting cereal boxes and peanut butter for the food bank. All kinds of different things to just have that student involvement. As far as our staff goes, we did our annual monetary collection so that we could go and purchase gift cards for the random drawing, which just so happens to be students in financial need. Those are going to be distributed tomorrow, and tonight we're asking the foundation to match those staff donations. And we're also collecting new and gently used warm clothing so that students can pick up and snag whatever they need. We've got a table off to the side so they can just come in, grab what they need, and hopefully support those students that way. So just a lot going on this month, helping the students and getting the staff involved, so we're excited. Oh, and the Elks Lodge, we haven't done this in a couple of years, but the Elks Lodge puts together food baskets. I mean, they've got a ham and basically a whole dinner in a basket. And so they ask us for families in need. We're able to give them the names, and then we act as their elves and deliver them. So we delivered 12, 15? A total of 15 boxes Saturday, and then a couple trickled over into yesterday to get those distributed. So very excited. I took a phone call from a mother Monday morning. She had to have been in tears. She was so excited. I didn't want to call you on Saturday, but thank you so much. We have a whole dinner here. This is wonderful. So now just those wonderful things for the time of year. So we're pretty excited about that.
Good. And culinary for dinner too, very good.
We will.
Absolutely. And I think the next was student of the month. Did you have anything more on that?
Just the list of students that are recognized in each program are there for you for student of the month.
So guest and public comment, anybody like to address the board? Oh, we even have a section over there for it. We're not now. Operations, new business, we got final audit approval and field trips. Oh, JOC meetings? So that takes us to D for approval of those three items.
Motion, Boyd.
Second, Gilbert.
Moved and seconded, any discussion? The meeting schedule is the same, meeting fourth Thursday normally, except for December, not meeting in July or November. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? New financial items, business manager report.
As of November 30th, 2023, our general fund has $3,332,401.74. Our capital projects is at $4,665,292.46. Student activities, $10,479.58. All benefits account is $14,144.16. We have received 42% of our revenue and expensed 33% so far.
Very good. Anything further on treasurer's report?
No, I added that September treasurer report that I didn't have last month, so I added that to this month.
Very good, so that's all on there, checks, statement of activity, open, invoices payable, visa procurement card, takes us to G.
Motion, Boyd. Morvay, second.
Moved and second, any discussion, questions for Jessica?
Just wonder what D was. Section of the agenda.
D, the statement of activities. good?
Yeah.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. So we got administrative services and human resources. Is this the section we need to?
Put that under, why don't we make it 10F?
So that's the one we added.
Right.
But the question is, do we need to change? We were ratifying these. Where is the new?
That's under resignations, retirements, or hiring and subs.
So do we need to change anything for this to be,
Yes. It's 10DD. Instead of confidential, it would be business. So when we make the motion, make sure that motion, that amendment is part of the motion.
just change it? We don't have a motion yet, so we
Right.
just change it. So whoever motions this section under DD, instead of saying confidential, we should really confidential for business. Right?
Yeah.
That's the only change. Everything else will be the same.
The hourly rate will change, $1 less.
Well, if we approve it, this, can we do that or not?
The contract says the hourly rate for business office secretary, Kat, give it you at 23.18.
So make those two changes.
And then we'll move it to 24.18 and confidential secretary at the next meeting.
And it'll retroactively pay back to this month,
That's
to
my
make the
plan.
person whole.
That was my plan.
We'll do that next one.
Just making sure that was the plan, so that the person understands what we're whole.
So everybody's got that? So it's through E. E will approve everything there. F is the new one, and we'll deal with that later.
Right.
With those two changes, the hourly rate and business instead of confidential. So is our motion for all of these? Motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? With those changes, all of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Now we have F that we added to the, does anybody want to move that?
Oh, just move to table that until next meeting.
We want to actually table?
Yeah.
Okay,
Move the table
Second?
to next month.
next month.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. Superintendent's report.
He's not here. Director report I already covered.
Solicitor's report.
Well, we've already talked about what the new case that interpreted the Sunshine Act, and so everybody is aware of that.
It's creating havoc.
It's creating havoc. You can't amend your agenda to add contracts or anything that deals with the spending of money. You can only add to your agenda if it's an emergency that threatens the health and safety of either your person or property, or a matter that comes up during the meeting that doesn't include, is supposed to be a de minimis matter that doesn't include spending money or contracts, or something comes up from the public. Again, you can add it, but you can't approve it unless it's a de minimis matter, not spending money or a contract. However, if it comes up from the public, you can obviously refer it to the next meeting or refer it for research. So that's the decision out of the Commonwealth Court that was rendered on November 8th, interpreting the Sunshine Act. We typically, there was a previous fourth exception that allowed us to make an amendment to the agenda subject to a board approval. Well, the court said that that is not an exception, that is a procedural method. And it was a 2-to-1 vote with one judge dissenting. It was only a 3-panel decision out of the Commonwealth Court. The other, the Commonwealth Court is 9-member panel. However, it was appealed or a petition to file allowance for appeal was filed with the Supreme Court on December 4th. And we're waiting to see if the Supreme Court will accept that petition. It is a case of first impression, first in interpreting the new Sunshine Act. So that is something typically the Supreme Court may entertain because the first time somebody's actually looked at the Sunshine Act and tried to interpret it. So we'll see what happens, but at this point, we have to follow the decision that was rendered by the Commonwealth Court until it's changed. And so that resulted in, unfortunately, what we had to go through today. So it's a brand new decision. It just came out November 8th. So that's where we are. The only other item I have to report on is as part of the audit process, we did receive a letter from the auditor asking our office whether or not there are any pending claims or ongoing lawsuits, and we did respond to that letter with a letter indicating that there are no pending claims, no pending lawsuits. And lastly, happy holidays, everyone.
Thanks.
Principals report.
Nothing in addition.
Thank you. Facilities report. Technologies report. Instructional support. Services. Okay. Anything else that we need to bring up for the good of the order? What number? 14B. 14B. Is there a motion to approve that? We're gonna look at it. Is that what's coming up?
That's the holiday.
Oh, this is for all kinds of them. So it's like, is this like an annual?
We want to make it an annual thing. We really haven't done this. We're really pushing for the programs to have and/or use an enterprise account. And so we've asked them to brainstorm on ways to fundraise and then determine what those funds would be used for within their individual programs. And so these were some of the results that we wanted to share with you and get your approval on.
So it has been happening on a little basis.
Yes.
Now you're trying to make it.
Correct.
Very good. Is there a motion for this?
Motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. I don't see any facility use requests for profit, right? Well, then I'll say Merry Christmas as soon as we adjourn. Somebody like to move that? They don't get in trouble. Moved, seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you all.
Sorry, Dolly.
I know you're late.
It's recorded.
That foundation meeting.
Jen, it just bogs us down.
I'm so
No
sorry.
hurry, tonight you're still football on tonight.